Well, hello, everybody. Welcome. Thanks for joining us. We're doing a little human touch, Scott. Yeah, a little human touch here. A lot of tech, a lot of AI here at this summit. So we wanted to take a slightly different tack and talk about the human side of things. Scott, you have a book, the Scruffies? No.
The Scruffy, the fuzzy.
The fuzzies.
Yes.
The fuzzies and the techies. You know, there's
no scruff today. But.
No scruff. So the fuzzies and the techies. So tell us a little bit about, to kick us off, what's your main thesis of that and why is it interesting for this audience?
Yeah, so really my background has come from studying political theory, studying philosophy, studying politics, and then somehow ending up working in technology, like many people in this room. Ending up at places like Google where family and friends said, what do you possibly do at a place like Google? I think it's only engineers who work there. And sort of looking behind the veil of technology and realizing that there's all these sort of human skills that come into play, storytelling, fundraising, all these aspects. And so for the last 12 years, have been in venture capital. And the overwhelming observation that I've had is all of the best entrepreneurs and the most successful founders that we've invested in had this je ne sais quoi, they had this other skill set. They had this ability to tell this story. They had the same idea as many people had before, but yet they were the one that was able to raise the money, to hire the team, to build the business successfully. And so kind of looking behind the veil of technology, the realization was when you look at the backgrounds of somebody like Reid Hoffman, who founded LinkedIn, Reid Hoffman has a background in philosophy. When you look at investors like Peter Thiel has a background in philosophy. When you look at Marissa Mayer, who ran Google Products and Yahoo for a number of years. Marissa, Reid Hoffman, and a number of others in Silicon Valley all came out of one program that was blending these two sides of the same coin. So not looking at just science, technology, engineering, and math, but really also the humanities and the importance of learning these skills that come from study of history, the understanding of psychology, the understanding of sociology or anthropology. And so the reason I wrote this book, The Fuzzy and the Techie, those terms come from Stanford University, where back in the 1970s, people really sort of lumped campus into one side that was the humanities and social sciences, the fuzzies, and the other side, which was engineering sciences and the techies. And then again, looking at really what drives innovation is taking technology and steering it toward human problems, right? It's very rare that you find a purely technological company, right? Maybe if you're on the very, very frontiers of chip design or AI, but really it's about the application of technology to human problems. And so then the secondary language that you have to understand is the world around you. And what is the world around you? It's the study of history. It's the study of philosophy. It's the study of human psychology and how people make decisions. And so just getting an engineering degree, just getting a degree in computer science is great, but it's insufficient. It's not enough, right? And so I think the narrative of the book and really our investment philosophy at Everywhere Ventures is looking at deeply world positive companies and not so much impact, but positive companies in the sense that they're solving human problems, whatever those are. And they generally come from a mixed background. And so I think the counterintuitive truth about the book and the counterintuitive truth about investing in general for us has been that we don't actually back purely technological companies. We're tech investors, we're venture capitalists, but I think of myself as a psychologist. What I'm really doing is like sitting across the table, having a conversation with you.
You're making bets on the people.
Making a bet on the people.
Yeah.
And so it's about storytelling, it's about the narrative, it's about all these other soft skills that are often discounted when people think, I gotta be the best coder and I've gotta have the leading edge technology. You know, that's generally not enough. And generally what it is all these soft parameters and being able to build a team around you that can supplement your weaknesses, right?
Yeah.
And so that's kind of
I spent 8 years on the other side of that. So I was in the .com era from pretty much beginning to end in 2 startups that I was a founder of, and our founding team were 2 MBAs. Yeah. So I agree 100%. I mean, our hard skills were necessary and useful. The same way you're not saying we don't need the tech skills. Of course we need the tech skills, right? But in our case, I mean, what we found was exactly what you're saying, that it's the human skills, it's selling, it's getting up there and being confident in something that, to be fair, you're not actually confident in because it's barely working, but you got to start selling it anyway, right? Yeah. And that requires a certain type of behaviors and mindsets, right?
You know, and I think just the roles people often think, oh, you know, storytelling and sales, that makes sense. But I'd say that really the innovations, that the leading drivers of a company that I'd say catches my eye, catches my interest. We've made about 250 investments over the last 5 or 6 years. And one example, an amazing young woman that I met a few years ago, she was actually a ballerina at the Met in New York. And she had this interest in mechanical engineering. And everybody said, you know, you're a ballerina, you can't do mechanical engineering. But she was a choreographer, and she realized that for end-of-life care in hospital systems, robotics is jerky movements of robotics. The only real driver of what makes that company successful is if people trust the robots, hospitals buy the robot systems. And so she found that she was actually able to get a job working with a lab where she was teaching choreography with the engineers to make the robots move more gracefully and more like humans.
Yeah.
So a complete example of somebody coming from ballet, having a view of the world that was unique and different, and being able to build a robotics company that is now on the leading edge of you know, end-of-life care in the robotics industry. That's just one example, but there's so many of these where, you know, you look at self-driving cars, you think it's about sensors, it's about data, it's about, you know, Tesla and Elon Musk. Actually, when you look at Nissan, and the woman behind the Nissan lab is a PhD in anthropology. And the reason you might think is like, because if you drive around Madrid, you drive around Tokyo, you drive around New York City, the way people actually communicate is completely different. And so if you're coding into how a car can drive and navigate a street completely autonomously, you actually need to understand anthropology. You need to understand what a hand gesture in Italy means versus in Tokyo. And so it's these fascinating challenges that sit at this intersection of this frontier of subjects that you don't normally think go together.
Yeah, anthro,
right?
ethno, you know, these kinds of things. And you mentioned choreography. I mean, what's interesting is, I'm interested to hear your opinion is on the investment side, but I mean, project management. I mean, who doesn't manage projects in business, right? But we recently just did a quick study of top business schools in the world to kind of see what are we actually requiring as business schools in MBAs, for example. And project management is not on the list. How is that possible, right? So, I mean, we're adding it at IE, but I mean, you got to be good at project management. And you mentioned the humanities. I mean, critical thinking, problem solving. I mean, those are things that, you know, you can kind of learn in a class, but you got to practice and practice. And things like philosophy. I mean, learning philosophy is a core driver. And you have some stories about that, right?
Philosophy is an interesting example because, you know, there's the common tropes. So you read the newspaper, you see the latest, you know, what's the market for jobs in philosophy? Well, I'll tell you, it's usually hedge fund manager, amazing entrepreneur, billionaire. those are often the job titles of philosophy graduates, right? The reason is, like, Stuart Butterfield is a great example of this. He has 2 degrees in philosophy. Stuart is the founder of Slack, as many of you might know. But what his description of why that was a useful skill set was because he said, what's closer to entrepreneurship than something where there is no right answer, right? Philosophy is deeply problematic and challenging because it's gray. It's navigating through the dark, is what he says. And entrepreneurship is navigating through the dark. You're trying to find product market fit, but you don't know exactly what to build. You know, the Monday morning quarterbacking, as we say in the States, of somebody saying, well, I always had this vision, I was always going this direction, is never the case. I tell you, you know, we have 250 companies, and very rarely did somebody chart the course in a completely linear way. Typically, it's looking backward, it's feeling their way through the dark. And so that skill set of being able to grapple with ambiguity that you learn in a course like philosophy, or you see the empathy by reading a book that seems irrelevant from 200 years ago that's literature, right? You're learning about these aspects that are kind of indirectly informing you as a better entrepreneur. And so I think, you know, the takeaway really is build the technical skills for sure. This is a new language. It's the lingua franca of our generation, right? But additionally, these timeless skills have not gone away. And I'd say the comparative advantage of what makes you a better entrepreneur than most, you know, leading story in the book was about a woman who's built an amazing company in the healthcare space, but she was previously a Broadway actress. And she realized that when you go to a Broadway audition, there's 100 people in the room, they're all sitting in chairs, they all get a piece of paper that has a script. One person gets the part. Why is that? It's the person who can actually tell the story in the most emphatic way. And entrepreneurship is exactly the same thing, right? We see decks, companies, ideas that look exactly the same week in and week out. Yet there are certain ones that we invest in and certain ones we don't. And the difference are those soft skills, that ability to storytell, right?
And let's shift it to the tech itself. So, I mean, you're really making a kind of a pitch for the fact that we need diverse people with diverse backgrounds in entrepreneurship, right, and starting companies. But let's think about the tech that many of the companies that are being started are building, right? And so Industry 5.0, I mean, Industry 4.0 is about connecting all the tech, right, and networking and connectivity. Industry 5.0 is about human factors, about making the tech work for us, making it work well with us working well with the tech. So maybe one argument is that, to extend your point is that we need the anthropologists, we need the psychologists, cognitive and social. We need people that have very broad backgrounds to help us design technology that is going to be super usable, right? I mean, we used to call it human factors,
right?
But so I think your point, holds even perhaps more strongly in how we design the tech, in addition to just how we build the company around it.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think that the real sort of driving narrative too is that don't feel locked out of technology because you didn't, when you were 13 years old, study computer science and learn all of the skills that you think are relevant for today, because the skills that you have are relevant for today, right? And you can learn, if anything, the barrier to entry around technology is coming down. And so when we talk about AI, what I think about is Copilot. What I think about is you used to have to write the syntax. I got frustrated when I took computer science in high school because I would get a semicolon wrong somewhere in the code and the thing would not compile, right? Today you have libraries, you fork from GitHub, you have a repo, you can sort of copy and paste and then iterate, right? And now you even have a tool and a coach in the form of a Copilot that helps you code and says, hey, you're missing this little piece here, you might want to reframe it that way. And so if anything, the barrier to entry for becoming a coder has come down, right? So it's enabling and democratizing. And so I think, again, the comparative advantage of what makes you an amazing entrepreneur are being able to navigate that skill set, right? But then also having this other side of the coin.
Yeah, and I think also, a lot of people are talking about how jobs, we're going to have a lot of jobs that disappear. But when I think about, let's just say business professionals, not technology professionals, but business professionals, what is it we're going to be doing, in the new world of work? And I think a lot of these technologies are going to enable us to do things we've never been able to do. So you mentioned coding. I mean, I have an idea for an app. I want to build something to kind of feel it intuitively and see what it can do. Before I couldn't do that. I had to outsource that, and then it came back and it wasn't exactly what I wanted. Now I can do it myself. Or same thing, if you're a creative business person, I mean, you have an idea, you want to see how could this be positioned? What is this going to look like? What is this going to sound like? You can do it yourself now, right, with technology. And whereas before, you farm that out to an agency or to a graphic designer, and you're waiting, it comes back, you say, that has nothing to do with what I wanted. And then your speed is, you're slowed down, right? So
I'd say, when we look at companies, I'd say they fall into two buckets. One are companies that, again, are on the frontiers of innovation around building new ground up technologies, right, that are more technical. Those would be building a building block itself. But then many companies, most of the companies that I think we're investing in are assembling building blocks, right? So if you look at Uber, which I used to get over to La Nave today, you see like the maps function, you see the payments function, you see all these APIs under the hood where effectively what they've done is you used to have full stack developers that would build, all through the stack. Now you have what I call full stack integrators that are able to build these building blocks, right? And you think of, playing chess, you can move one move at a time, but if you become a grandmaster, you're thinking in these big chunks. You're thinking in terms of 10 moves, 20 moves, 30 moves, right? Yeah. And so technology has become chunkier, where if you're assembling building blocks and you have a good idea, chances are those building blocks already exist, and all you have to do is go find them, build a team around you, and be able to kind of assemble them the right way, tell the story the right way, and suddenly you're off to the races. And so it's become a lot more democratized in that sense.
Yeah, that reminds me, the extreme of that is, and we had Sam Altman from OpenAI at IU University a couple weeks ago, and he said something that stuck with me, which was, he said, I think, we're going to start seeing unicorns of one person. Like companies started by one person that can do everything using current technology, and build it themselves and take it to unicorn. Now, maybe that's a little extreme or not. I don't know. Maybe someone out there will prove us right or wrong. But I mean, I think that's to your point is, I mean, you can do so much now, whether you're a technology professional or not, that really, I mean, entrepreneurship, I mean, the fire underneath entrepreneurship is lit and it's burning. And I think it empowers all of us to do more.
It's amazing too. I mean, there there have been the kind of pendulum swing around the AI debate, artificial intelligence on one side and kind of intelligence amplification on the other side, AI or IA. And I think, the pendulum swung a few years ago to heavily fearful, jobs are going away. Oxford had a study that said something outrageous, like 50% of jobs are going to disappear. I wrote my book partially to kind of go back against the grain and say, look, it's not the rise of the robots, it's actually intelligence amplification. It's making us better, it's human amplification. McKinsey did a study a few years after that, which I'm sure you know, where they looked at jobs and they said, a job is not a job. What it is 100 tasks, right? And within all those tasks that you do in your job, some of them are data entry, some of them are collaboration, some of them are communication. So some of them are really rote and routine, but a lot of them are non-routine and really difficult to automate. Or if you automated it, it would be a very expensive and very long process. And so, when we think about future of jobs and all these tools, what they're really doing is taking away from those rote and routine tasks within a job, right? And so a lot of companies, when we talk about future of work, what is a future of work company? I'd say it's looking at a job, and the job is 100 tasks, 20 of them are routine and rote. What they're doing is taking that chunk and automating it in a way that now makes that person not go away, but makes that person have their 80% tasks, and now there's 20% free time. And now they can be more productive and they can focus on these human skills, right? And so it's upskilling people to be more productive. And those are the companies that we're investing in. We're looking at what are you automating and why, and how are you supplementing a human being to do better work, right? That's a future of work company.
Yeah, I mean, some people refer to it as the new project economy, right? And the idea that a company is a set of projects, and as you said, some are routine, some are doing new things, and a lot of the routine stuff automated, and allows us to focus, as business professionals on the fun stuff, on the higher value added, and you can imagine where that goes. So, I mean, you think there are opportunities there for people interested in startups in enabling and building the infrastructure for the new project-based economy?
Yeah, and I think to the Sam Altman question too, it's the rise of these, I call them thin companies, where you could have very thin layer of human beings. And again, it begs a bigger question, right? A big societal question of where do those jobs go, and who backfills those jobs. It's kind of the perennial debate, but we forget that in the 1950s, believe it or not, there was a job title that you could, you wouldn't go to Indeed.com to apply for, but something similar, right? And that job title was calculator. We forget how in the near recent past, there was a job title called calculator, where it literally was strips of paper and calculating numbers. And of course, that's a very rote, very routine task that we've since handed off to machines. But when we think about those tasks, the things that are manual, that are heavily rote and routine, that's robotics, right? That's something where you could substitute robotics for that rote routine task. And for a cognitive task, that's something that you're doing over and over and over in Excel, you build an Excel model to do it. You automate a function. That's basic programming, right? And we're just 2 levels above that now, where we're saying, okay, there was Excel modeling, basic formatting, now there's sort of machine learning, and now there's this sort of generative AI that's able to kind of see what you want to do and get one step ahead of you. But all this, in my mind, is a heavily optimistic conversation, and a really exciting conversation because it democratizes this ability to be an entrepreneur. It democratizes this ability to solve the problems that you see in the world and that you're passionate about. Right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things we're thinking about in terms of education and what we teach in a business school is, I think the team of the future are humans and bots and droids, whatever we want to call them, if we think about Star Wars, right? And we're going to need to learn to work with bots, work with intelligent machines, and they're going to have strengths and weaknesses just like we all do, and we have to learn to work with each other. So I think to your original point about the humanities and psychology and social sciences and how we need those skills to learn to work with each other. I mean, those skills will also allow us to learn to work with machines in an intelligent way.